Have you ever had one of those moments that completely shifts your life? For me, it was the day I met Brandon. I was just another girl in a cafe, sipping cheap coffee and trying to figure things out when he walked in. He asked if the seat across from me was taken, and in that moment, I had no idea that simple question would change everything. We hit it off instantly, sharing quirky interests and easy laughter. Soon, we were inseparable, talking about the future, including marriage. But I had no idea what was coming next, how complicated things were about to get. I still remember the day I first met Brandon like it was yesterday. I was sitting in this little dive cafe, sipping on the cheapest coffee they had, trying to sort through my jumbled thoughts and figure out what direction to take in my life. The atmosphere was a little worn, nothing fancy, just the buzz of the espresso machine and the mix of stale coffee beans in the air. Then, without warning, he walked in, almost like it was a scene straight out of a movie, but without any dramatic lighting or a soundtrack, just the ding of the doorbell and his unmistakable aftershave filling the room. "Is the seat taken?" he asked, pointing to the empty chair across from me with a smile that could probably make anyone's heart skip a beat. I did my best to play it cool, even though my pulse was racing. "Looks free to me," I replied, trying not to sound too flustered by his sudden appearance. We started talking, and it felt like we clicked instantly. He was into all the same quirky things I was: cheesy TV shows, pizza debates, pineapple, by the way, which he defended passionately, and spontaneous late-night conversations about everything under the sun. It didn't take long before we were more than just casual acquaintances. We were dating, and I felt like I'd known him for a lifetime. Before we knew it, marriage was a topic that came up in conversation. That's when things started to get a little more complicated. His parents. Meeting them for the first time felt like stepping into the lion's den. They had this way of smiling at you, but it wasn't welcoming. It was like they were sizing me up, evaluating whether I was worth their time. "So you're the girl Brandon can't stop talking about," his mom said, her voice sweet but carrying an edge that made my stomach tighten. "Guilty as charged," I replied, trying to keep my composure, though I could feel my nerves creeping up. It didn't take long for them to lay down their terms. It was prenup time. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not a gold digger, and I certainly don't need anyone's money. But the way they went about it made me feel like they were treating me like a bargaining chip in some big financial game. "I'll sign your prenup," I said firmly, "but I have one condition. If either of us cheats, the cheater has to pay the other $200,000. Brandon's face went pale, like I'd just dropped a bomb on him. "Babe, I would never cheat on you," he said, looking completely taken aback. "Yeah, well, my ex said the same thing right before I caught him in the act," I shot back, letting him know this wasn't up for debate. "So it's this, or nothing." He reluctantly agreed, and even though his parents didn't look thrilled, they agreed too, though you could practically see the sour taste in their mouths. We thought that would be the end of the drama. But of course, it wasn't. One evening, we were curled up on our old, beat-up couch, the one we always meant to replace but never did because it became our spot. The TV was on, but we weren't really watching. We were too caught up in planning our dream trip to Italy, one we knew we couldn't afford but were determined to make happen. "Brandon, think about it. The food, the wine, the art. We have to go," I said, my eyes lighting up with excitement. He laughed, pulling me closer. "Tessa, babe, you had me at food. But let's be real. Our bank account is more camping in the backyard than romantic getaway to Venice." I playfully nudged him. "So we'll save up. We'll cut back on things we don't need, like, I don't know, your video games." He pretended to be horrified. "Not the video games. Take my shirts, my shoes, even my coffee maker, but not the games." We laughed. That was us, always dreaming big, but still grounded in reality. We didn't need anything fancy to be happy. Our joy was in the small things, like Brandon making breakfast on Saturdays. He couldn't cook to save his life, but somehow he had mastered scrambled eggs and toast, served with a side of terrible coffee. Still, I loved those mornings. "Hey, I'm thinking scrambled eggs today. What do you think?" he'd ask, already making his way to the kitchen. "Only if you promise not to burn the toast this time," I'd yell back, adding, And I'm making the coffee. One day, the topic we had been dancing around finally came up. We were doing dishes together, a simple task that somehow felt special because we were doing it side by side. "Tessa," Brandon said, breaking the comfortable silence. "We need to talk about starting a family." I paused, a plate still in my hand. "I know, it's scary, isn't it? What if we can't?" Brandon turned to me, drying his hands on a towel. "Then we'll handle it together. But we won't know unless we try, right? I mean, how hard can it be?" I laughed, a mix of nervousness and love bubbling up. Famous last words, babe. But that was our thing. No matter what life threw at us, we faced it together, even when his mom started dropping not-so-subtle hints about grandchildren every chance she got. "Tessa, darling, when are you going to give me some grandbabies?" she'd say, her voice dripping with sweetness, though her message was anything but. "You're not getting any younger, you know." I'd force a smile, biting my tongue. "We're working on it, aren't we, Brandon?" He'd always jump in to defend me. "Yeah, Mom, relax. These things take time." And that's just how things were with us. We took it all in stride, together. As the year dragged on, the pressure started to pile up, not just from Brandon's mom, Eleanor, but from inside our own hearts. We wanted a family so badly, but it just wasn't happening as easily as we'd hoped. Ever since Eleanor found her new hobby of making my life miserable, our home had turned into a battlefield, and her weapon of choice was her sharp, unforgiving tongue. What once were occasional snide remarks had turned into a daily assault on my confidence and my role as a wife. Things came to a head one Sunday at lunch, a day that was supposed to be laid back and peaceful. Eleanor, with her impeccable sense of bad timing, showed up uninvited just as we were about to sit down. The atmosphere instantly turned tense the moment she walked through the door, her eyes scanning the room like she was about to conduct a military inspection. "Well, isn't this just cozy?" she started, her voice dripping with sarcasm as her eyes flicked over the simple meal I had prepared. "You've really outdone yourself, Tessa. I can tell you've been slaving away in the kitchen all morning." Her gaze met mine briefly, the corners of her mouth lifting into a smug smirk. I forced a smile, determined to keep the peace. "It's nothing fancy, Eleanor, just something quick and easy. Please have a seat." But as soon as we sat down, she wasted no time launching into her usual routine. "You know, Tessa," she said, her voice laced with condescension. "I was talking to Mrs. Henderson the other day, and she mentioned that her grandson was just born. It got me thinking, when are you and Brandon going to give me some good news? It's not like you're getting any younger." I could feel my face flush with a mix of embarrassment and anger. I glanced at Brandon, silently pleading for some support, but he was suddenly very interested in his plate. "Mom, come on," Brandon muttered weakly, but it was half-hearted and we all knew it. Eleanor pressed on, relentless. "And Brandon, dear, I don't mean to be harsh, but you're not a charity. You work hard for your money. Why waste it on Tessa if she can't even fulfill her basic duties as a wife? A cleaning service and a cook would be much more efficient, don't you think?" That's when I snapped. I couldn't hold it in anymore. "Eleanor, I'm trying my best here. It's not like I don't want kids, and as for the house and my cooking, I didn't realize marriage was a service contract." Eleanor scoffed. "Well, it's not a free ride either. You have responsibilities, Tessa, ones you're clearly not living up to." The air in the room was thick with tension, and I could feel tears stinging the back of my eyes. But what hurt more than Eleanor's cruel words was Brandon's silence. He finally spoke, but his words cut deeper than I expected. "Yeah, Mom has a point. Maybe we should think about getting some help around here. It'd make things easier for you too." Easier for me. Those words stung, hitting me like a sharp jab. It was becoming painfully clear. I was fighting this battle alone. In the days that followed, Eleanor's visits became more frequent, and with each one her criticism grew sharper. She'd inspect every corner of the house, pointing out even the smallest flaw. "You call this clean?" She'd scoff, her tone dripping with disdain. My eyes must be playing tricks on me because this looks like a pigsty. Then she'd move on to jabs about my appearance. "Is that what you're wearing? A wife should dress to please her husband. No wonder Brandon's always so tired. He has to come home to this." I tried to defend myself, though it felt futile. "Eleanor, I don't dress for Brandon. I dress for me, and he's tired because he works hard, not because of what I wear." But it was like talking to a brick wall. She'd already made up her mind about me, and no matter what I said, it wouldn't change a thing. What hurt the most wasn't even Eleanor's constant criticisms. Though they were painful enough, it was Brandon's refusal to take my side. After each one of Eleanor's visits, we'd argue. "Why won't you stand up for me, Brandon?" I would plead, frustration building. "She's walking all over us, and you're just letting it happen." "She's old, Tessa," he'd respond, always with that tired, dismissive tone. "Set in her ways. What do you want me to do? Kick my own mom out?" "No, I just want you to be my husband," I'd say, feeling my heart sink. "Stand by me, not her." It was becoming clearer by the day that this wasn't just about Eleanor's disapproval. It was about us, whether we were strong enough as a couple to stand united, or if we'd let her harsh words tear us apart. As the days dragged on, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't a passing phase. It felt like we were under siege, and if we didn't act soon, there might not be anything left to save. Things between me and Brandon had been chilly ever since Eleanor had ramped up her criticisms, but it wasn't just the tension at home. Brandon had started acting strange, and it wasn't the kind of strange you get from work stress. It was something deeper, something that made my stomach churn with unease. It started with the phone calls. Brandon had always been open about his phone, no secrets between us, but lately, every time he got a call, he'd step out of the room. The caller ID always showed the same name, John Work. "Who's John Work?" I asked one evening, trying to keep my tone casual. But when I said it, I noticed Brandon flinch, a clear sign that something was off. "Oh, just a new guy at the office," he replied, but I could see the tension in his eyes. "Asks lots of questions, you know." I didn't buy it. Something was wrong, and I had a sinking feeling it had everything to do with the cracks in our marriage, and maybe more than I was ready to face. But it didn't stop there. Brandon, who had never cared much about his appearance, suddenly started paying attention to the way he dressed. Gone were the old graphic t-shirts and worn-out jeans. Now it was crisp button-up shirts and slacks, and cologne. He was wearing cologne now. Since when did he care about smelling like a department store? I thought to myself, watching Brandon get ready one morning. The new clothes, the cologne, the sudden attention to his appearance. It wasn't like him. "What's with the new look, Brandon? Got a job interview or something?" I joked, trying to keep it light, but I couldn't shake the unease growing inside me. He smirked, a little too quickly. "Just felt like changing things up. No harm in that, right?" But the changes weren't just about his clothes. The late nights at work were becoming more frequent. "Text me another long one, babe. Sorry, this project's killing me. Won't be late, I promise." But the clock would tick past midnight and I'd still be waiting, pretending everything was fine. I tried to dismiss it, convincing myself it was just work stress, but the feeling that something was wrong clung to me like a shadow. That's when I did something I never thought I'd do. I hired a private detective. It felt surreal, like something out of a bad TV show, but I had to know the truth. When the envelope arrived, I stared at it for what felt like hours before I finally opened it. The contents were as heartbreaking as they were damning. Photos of Brandon with another woman, their intimacy undeniable in each frame. They looked happy, wrapped up in a world that didn't include me. But it wasn't just the photos. The recording was the real dagger. I listened to their conversations, filled with endearments and plans. They weren't just having an affair, they were in love. Or at least Brandon was in love with her. I sat there, the evidence spread out in front of me, my heart breaking piece by piece. This was it. the proof that could shatter our marriage and anchor me in a stormy divorce, should it come to that. But I wasn't ready to confront him, not yet. I needed a plan, a way to navigate this wreckage with my dignity intact. For days, I carried the secret like a heavy stone, pretending everything was normal. Brandon continued his charade, and I played the part of the perfect wife, smiling, cooking, cleaning, all while the weight of the truth crushed me from the inside. Our conversations became rehearsed, each word measured carefully. We danced around the elephant in the room, pretending everything was fine. "Everything okay? You've been quiet lately," Brandon asked one evening, his concern sounding almost genuine. "Yeah, just tired. Work's been crazy," I lied, the words bitter on my tongue. It started as any ordinary day, but it quickly turned into something else. I was walking past Brandon's office when I overheard voices. The door was slightly ajar, and I hesitated before listening. It was Brandon and his mother, Eleanor. Their conversation wasn't light or casual, it was heavy, laden with tension and something far darker. "I'm telling you, Mom, I can't keep doing this." Brandon's voice came through, strained and exhausted. "It's not just about the kids anymore. I've lost all feeling for Tessa. It feels like we're roommates, not husband and wife." Eleanor's response was sharp and biting. "Of course you feel that way. She hasn't given you a child. And let's be honest, what else has she brought to this marriage? But don't rush things. My 68th birthday is coming up. We wouldn't want to miss out on a generous gift from her, would we?" Her words twisted the knife deeper, cold and calculating. It was clear they were using me, biding their time until they could throw me away. Brandon's voice turned flat, almost mechanical. "And after we get that nice, expensive gift, we can just kick her to the curb, right?" "Exactly, dear," Eleanor agreed, her voice dripping with malice. "Just keep her around a little longer." I stood frozen, rooted to the spot. They were talking about me like I was some kind of disposable object, planning my removal from the family as if it were a simple chore. The betrayal was crushing, but with it ignited something inside me, a burning need for revenge. They thought they could use me and toss me aside. They were about to learn exactly who they were dealing with. A few days later, at a family dinner, Eleanor, with her usual smug expression, casually brought up her birthday. "So, Tessa dear, what are you planning for my birthday? I do hope it's something special," she said, eyes glittering with expectation. I met her gaze, my face an unbreakable mask. "Actually, Eleanor, I was thinking of hosting a dinner at the city's most luxurious restaurant, a night you won't forget." Her eyes gleamed with greed, and she exchanged a brief, satisfied look with Brandon. They thought they had me trapped. What they didn't realize was I was already 2 steps ahead. "Oh, Tessa, that sounds just wonderful. Just close family, of course, to keep it intimate," Eleanor purred, her voice sweet as syrup. "Of course, Eleanor. It'll be our pleasure," I replied, the words tasting like poison on my tongue. The weeks leading up to Eleanor's 68th birthday felt like a slow, torturous countdown. Every smug comment from her, every indifferent glance from Brandon, only made my resolve harder. My plan was simple yet audacious. Something straight out of a thriller. Host a lavish dinner, pretend to be the dutiful wife, and then, at the perfect moment, deliver the devastating blow. The night before the party, the tension at home was palpable. Brandon, completely oblivious to what was brewing, was lounging on the couch, scrolling through his phone. "Everything set for tomorrow?" he asked, not even bothering to look up. "Oh, you could say that," I replied, my voice calm, belying the storm raging inside me. The day of the party arrived, and as guests filled the luxurious dining room I had reserved, the air was thick with anticipation. My heart raced, not from nerves, but from the adrenaline coursing through me. Eleanor, basking in the attention as usual, lavished praise on the restaurant. "Oh, Tessa, you've outdone yourself. This place is exquisite," she exclaimed loudly enough for everyone to hear. As the meal progressed, the conversations felt forced, the laughter hollow, but I played along, knowing what was coming. As the dessert plates were cleared, The waiter discreetly approached me with the bill. $66,000, he whispered. Without a second thought, I handed over my card, the gesture unnoticed by most. Then, just as Brandon's smirk spread across his face, he decided it was time to make his move. "Tessa," he began, his tone cold and detached. "I think it's time everyone knew. I'm tired of this. Of us." The tension between us had been brewing for months, but Brandon's declaration caught me off guard. "I want a divorce," he said, his words hanging in the air like a toxic cloud. It sucked the noise out of the room, leaving only a suffocating silence. I sat frozen for a moment, my mind racing to process the weight of his statement. Before I could respond, Eleanor, ever quick to twist the knife, chimed in. "Well then, since that's out in the open, I think it's best you leave, Tessa. We're celebrating family tonight, and you're no longer part of it." The room went deadly quiet. All eyes turned to me, waiting for the inevitable collapse. But instead of crumbling, I stood with a calmness I didn't truly feel. Without a word, I nodded and walked out. The cool night air slapped me as I left behind the only life I had known for years. Each step home was heavy, the reality of what had just happened sinking in. By the time I reached the apartment, no, his apartment, a plan had already begun to take shape in my mind. There was no time for tears, no room for sorrow. I packed quickly, numbed by the cold resolve that had settled over me. This was the end of one life and the start of another. As I zipped up the last suitcase, my phone buzzed with a relentless vibration. I ignored it at first, but when curiosity got the better of me, I saw Eleanor's name flashing on the screen. Her voice, sharp and grating, immediately filled my ear. "Tessa, the payment didn't go through. You need to fix this now." Oh, the irony. In my preparations for the inevitable, I had blocked the shared account, knowing it would be the first thing Brandon would try to use against me. I let the words sink in, savoring the moment before replying calmly. "That's unfortunate, Eleanor, but since I'm no longer part of the family, as you so eloquently put it, you'll have to figure this one out." Her outrage exploded through the phone, her words screeching with venom, but to me it was music. I could already imagine the chaos unfolding at the restaurant, the staff demanding payment, Eleanor throwing tantrums, and eventually the arrival of the police to calm the scene. It was a fitting end to the sham my marriage had become. The next morning, with the divorce papers in hand, I returned to what used to be our shared home for one final time. As soon as I stepped through the door, the tension in the air was palpable. Brandon and Eleanor were already arguing, but when they saw me, their hostility turned into a united front. "You've got some nerve showing up here after last night," Brandon spat, his face a mask of disbelief and anger. Eleanor, ever the viper, hissed in agreement. "Ungrateful wretch! You embarrassed us in front of the whole city. Do you know how humiliating it was to have the police show up? People were laughing, filming." I met their fury with a calmness I didn't truly feel. "Embarrassed? Is that really what you're concerned about right now?" I tossed the divorce papers onto the table, the damning photos of Brandon's affair on top. "This is what you should be worried about." Brandon's face drained of color as he picked up the photos, Eleanor peering over his shoulder. Their anger shifted to shock and then panic, the gravity of the situation sinking in. "And let's not forget about the prenup, shall we?" I added, my voice as cold as ice. "You cheat, you pay, $200,000 to be exact." Eleanor's face contorted in rage. "You wouldn't dare! You can't do this to us!" "Oh, but I can," I said, the words heavy and final. "And I will." Brandon, realizing the depth of his mistake, tried to salvage the situation. "Please, let's talk about this. We can fix it." I couldn't stop the bitter laugh that escaped me. "Fix it? You think a few words can undo this?" "No, Brandon, it's done." Eleanor attempted her usual manipulative approach, softening her tone, feigning concern. "Tessa, darling, please think about what you're doing. This will ruin us." I met her gaze, unwavering. That ship has sailed, Eleanor. You should have thought about that before. Their pleas became more desperate, but my decision was already made. I was done being their pawn. In the end, Brandon had no choice but to borrow money from his parents to pay me. As I walked out of their house for the last time, check in hand, I felt a surprising lightness. The weight of their betrayal was gone, and I was finally free. With the payout, I found a small but cozy place of my own. It wasn't much, but it was my sanctuary away from the chaos of my old life. Life became quieter, and I cherished it. I had a job that kept me busy, neighbors who smiled and waved, and a little garden to care for. Every now and then, though, a piece of gossip from the past would find its way to me. Just the other day, while grabbing coffee at a local shop, I ran into someone from the old neighborhood. After the usual pleasantries, they leaned in, lowering their voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "Have you heard about the latest drama with your ex and his mom?" Curiosity piqued. I raised an eyebrow. "Can't say that I have. Do tell." The gossip was delicious. Apparently, Brandon's new girlfriend wasn't doing too well with Eleanor. They fought constantly, making my situation seem like a walk in the park. As I walked away, coffee in hand, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. Once, news like this would have sent me spiraling, but now it was just another bit of someone else's drama. These days, my biggest concerns are whether my tomatoes will ripen before the squirrels get to them, or if I'll ever master yoga without looking like a newborn deer on ice. Life is simpler, quieter, and infinitely sweeter on this side of the chaos. Did I do the right thing by standing up for myself? Or should I have stayed silent and let the past stay buried? After enduring years of betrayal and manipulation by Brandon and his mother, Eleanor, I finally took control of my life. When Brandon asked for a divorce, I used the opportunity to reclaim my dignity. At a family dinner, I revealed the truth, shared the evidence of his affair, and reminded them of the prenup. Despite their anger, I walked away with my self-respect intact, knowing that I had taken the necessary steps to free myself from their toxic grip. From the perspective of personal growth and empowerment, my decision to speak out and take control was necessary. For years, I had tolerated their cruelty, trying to please them and keep the peace. However, their lack of support, particularly from Brandon, revealed that I had been fighting a battle alone. By confronting them, I stopped being passive in my own life. I took the power back, choosing to prioritize my well-being over their comfort. This was a pivotal moment of self-liberation, where I decided not to let their toxicity dictate my future. Was it worth the emotional toll to stand up for myself, or should I have chosen a quieter path and kept the peace, even at the cost of my own happiness? What would you have done in my situation? Would you have confronted the betrayal head-on, or stayed silent to avoid the drama? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories of strength and survival.